We've received quite a bit of interest in my Free to Be workshop, so to that effect, beneath this video is a link that will give you a description for the workshop, and we've also included a special discount. So if that's something you would be interested in, I would invite you to click that link, and I hope that you would find the course to be quite beneficial. I want to address with you today a very difficult topic, and that's the subject of trauma bonding that happens with a narcissist. You know, so many times you'll hear people who are aware of someone who's with that unhealthy narcissistic person, and they can say, well, you just ought to go no contact, just have nothing else to do with them anymore. Well, many times that really is the right thing that needs to happen, maybe. But the problem is there can be so many different extraneous factors associated with it that it's just not quite that simple. Those of you who follow me regularly, you know that I try not to just apply just cut and dried one-size-fits-all solutions to every single situation. Everyone is a little bit different in the way that they experience this. Now, when you're attached with a narcissist, especially malignant narcissist, it's almost like you have a cancer that has been growing on the inside of your personality, if you will. There's a cancer inside your relationships, and it affects every part of your lifestyle. And it could be that as you become aware of this cancer, you're already so attached to so many other people and events and circumstances that it's hard to extricate yourself from that. I mean, it could be that the person that you're attached to, that narcissist, may be a parent, and you've been with that individual literally your entire life, and to say, well, I'm going to cut them out, well, that may not be quite as easy because there's so many other people attached to that decision. Or it could be that it's your spouse or a significant other, and getting away from that has many, many other ripple effects. Often there are children involved whenever you have a situation like this. I've known cases where there's a friendship that narcissistic person completely takes over and starts running your life. There can be business situations. When we talk about having a trauma bond, we talk about the inability to extract yourself from a toxic, divisive, unhealthy relationship. And there are many, many different elements that go into the feeding of that. Now, you can ask, well, how in the world do you get yourself caught in this trauma bond situation in the first place? Now, one I've already kind of mentioned, it could be that you grew up with it. And it was just so much your norm that you wound up just thinking, well, that's just the way people are, right? And then only as you get older and you compare your life circumstances to many others and you have better insight and awareness, it's like, this isn't working well, but it's just part of what you are. Many times, and this is extremely common, if it's a relationship that you've joined with in your adult years, you didn't know what you didn't know in the early stages. You know, that person can present themselves well, or there may have been some red flags, but you didn't exactly have the sophistication yet to know how to deal with it. And so you got yourself pulled all the way in. It can be that sometimes you get bonded with that person in a traumatic way because maybe you yourself were not in a good place when that person was introduced to you. You may have had your own rebellion, or you may not have been in your full place of security and personal stability. There are all sorts of reasons that you can get caught up in this trauma bond. Now, I want to go through 6 different themes that tend to be a part of the trauma bonding, and then we're going to figure out what we might be able to do that we can break free from that. Theme number 1 is when you're with somebody in a trauma bond, it's very common many times over for that narcissistic person to dangle promises in front of you that give you a feeling of hope or a positivity. Not everything associated with a narcissist is completely negative, especially in the early phases. It could be that person tries to be very pleasant, and they offer you this and they give you all sorts of gifts, and they make promises about how things can go really well. Just stick with the program. You know, you and me, we're going to be tight. And so often these individuals can present themselves up front as desirable and willing to be into you. And that's part of the seduction. And in retrospect, you can see that's that cancer is slowly coming into your system, and you don't know that it's a cancer yet. A second thing that's very common with trauma bonding is when the negatives show up, they can be greatly minimized. I can't even tell you how many times I've heard stories like, well, my father has this really, really bad temper, but, he's kind of always been that way, and all the men in his family are that way. Or this person that I'm now with, they cheated on me before we made our commitment to be together, and we talked about it, and they were crying in tears, and we got together despite some of that. And the negatives may all actually be there, but in the trauma bond, often those negatives are either minimized or explained away. And over time, it's like, well, we can get through this. And there's this false optimism that might begin to emerge. Now, a third element that's a part of trauma bonding is once you're in and that cancer starts coming into your personality, the control attacks are thrown at you by that narcissism left and right. You begin realizing, you've got everything figured out for me now, don't you? How I'm supposed to feel, what I ought to think, and what my priorities should be. Many times they take you into a place of isolation. Let's say it's your mother or your father, and it's like, we want you to be with our side of the family, but not your spouse's side of the family. That's what I mean by isolation. Or your significant others. It's like they begin to whittle away at some of the people that are threatening them, at your friendships and all like that, and they want to keep you away from that. That's an extremely common thing. But control and here's how you must be, and you hear a whole lot of must and got to and have to, and you feel like you're being placed inside a cage. And with that malignant, harsh narcissist, is like, yeah, that's what I do. A fourth common theme that we have is that once you're in that relationship that's trauma-based, there's a lot of anger that comes out, and it can be used very heavily to keep you in line. Many times I've spoken with people who are trauma bonded, and it's like, I'm so afraid of that person's anger because it can be so exaggerated and they can be so forceful in the way that they do it. And then sometimes it's in that loud way. Other times they go into the silent treatment and there's contempt. And it's like, I don't want to have to live with that. And so they try to do all that they can to try to keep that from happening. And in doing so, they get deeper and deeper into the pattern. And then a fifth very common theme that goes along with the trauma bond is that things like guilt and shame and threats become very prominent. And it's like, if you let other people know what's going on with us, first of all, it's your fault, not mine. There's a lot of things I could say about you that would just make you look bad. I'll expose you. I'll share all the dirt about you. And it's like, I'm going to pull back. And so you don't want to be honest and open because you don't know what that person might do to destroy other relationships. And then a sixth common theme is that you can be systematically pulled into an ongoing pattern of codependency. When we talk about codependency, it's like that narcissist is saying, I want you to run everything through me first. And they're dependent upon you to be their supply. Of course, they won't say that, but they want you to be dependent upon them. And it's kind of like, did you ask me about that? Oh, now, don't you know that that's not going to be helpful for us? And so they want you to make sure that you double check with who they are and what their system is. And so once you begin realizing that you have this psychological cancer that's in your life, it's like, I've got so many patterns that keep me tied to that person. It's very difficult. And then you might start looking back onto your earlier life, and it's like, I've already had other relationships that didn't work out, and I don't want this one to be the next one. And so you might feel beholden to that person because it's like, I don't want to have to go through a breakup all over again. Or it may be that you really do fear what other people are going to think of you if you have to go through that no contact and all. It may be that there's a money issue that's there, or you're afraid of what would happen to the children if you go through some sort of major adjustment with that person. It could be that you already have a propensity towards anxiety, and that anxiety keeps you tied in. Let's underscore, it is possible to get out and away from that trauma bond, but it's not going to be easy, and it's going to require some major firmness and determination on your side. So let's close by saying, first of all, you need to remind yourself, you're in an abusive situation. There's no other way to put it. And you didn't ask to be in an abusive situation. And it's so important for you to remember that. So many times you can feel this sense of embarrassment and just, futility. There you are, and there it is. And at some point, you just have to say, this is something I just can't continue to go on with. And if other people begin to know my stuff, then so be it. In addition, you need to be very realistic about the cost that could come with taking your exit. It can hurt, and you can feel frustrated with that futility. You may have to really adjust some of your relationships, and you'll have to make room for that. In addition, though, I'm hoping that you can decide, I need to let people in on my situation. Many times that controlling narcissist wants to keep you contained, and they don't want you to say a word about it. In other words, you have to be a keeper of their secrets. I'm not keeping secrets anymore. And it could be that you'll need to start talking very directly with close friends or support groups. Almost always when you go through this, it can be helpful for a therapist to help you through. Sometimes you even need to enlist the legal community to help you out. And then beyond that, you need to remind yourself the narcissist is going to do all they can to try to reel you back in once they begin figuring out that you're trying to extricate this cancer. But you know what? They can't reel you in without your cooperation. You have to remain firm. Now, sure enough, if possible, you do need to go no contact if it's that severe. And if you can't go 100% no contact, you want to get as close to it as you can. These people, they don't change. And if there's going to be any adjustment, it's going to have to be on your side. If you're conflict averse or pain averse, you need to rethink that, because there will be pain and difficulty. But at the same time, just kind of like when you have to go through surgery or treatment for cancer, you know that it can be difficult going through it. But there actually can be something good on the other side waiting for you. So I know that some of you feel like you're bound to that narcissist, but the bottom line is, I want you to live with a sense of dignity and respect and civility. That's what you deserve. And living bound with somebody who's a very toxic person is not going to get you there. You have to be determined to practice self-care and let people help you along the way. And I do hope that videos such as this can give you something to think about. That's the whole point. And if you've not already done so, I would encourage you to go beneath and subscribe. I mentioned that it could be that you'll need some counseling. And if you have someone in your area that can assist you, I would strongly encourage that. If you don't have someone in your immediate area, we have a sponsor who that we have a lot of trust in. We have a link below for online counseling. If that's something you would need to avail yourself to, I would certainly encourage you to do that. We also have my free-to-be online workshop course. It's a very extensive way of trying to find yourself despite the controllers in your life. We have links to our books, website, survivingnarcissism.tv, drlescarter.com, lots of resources. I want you to get the help you need, and I want you to be able to live into a life where you can actually breathe freely and know that there is plenty of goodness out there that you get to tap into. And in doing so, I'm hoping that you're going to be able to find your place of steadiness and your place of peace.